For the average soldier in the Second World War, this was the sound of death. Not the crack of a rifle, but the random, impersonal violence of the artillery shell. On the battlefields of Europe, over 70% of all combat casualties were caused by shrapnel from artillery, mortars, and bombs. In this storm of steel, a soldier's single most important piece of equipment was not his rifle. It was the helmet on his head. The German Stahlhelm, the steel helmet, was a masterpiece of intimidating design, a symbol of the fearsome German war machine. It was well made, and its shape was engineered to protect the wearer's neck and ears. To many, it looked invincible. The American answer was not a more intimidating helmet, it was a smarter one. And it was backed by a force the Germans could never hope to match. The M1 helmet was not just a piece of armor. It was a revolutionary, mass-producible system that provided superior protection and incredible utility. It was the perfect case study for how America's arsenal of democracy didn't just outfight its enemies. It outthought, outproduced, and ultimately overwhelmed them. To understand the genius of the M1, you must first look at what it replaced. When America entered the war, its soldiers were still wearing the M1917 helmet, a relic from the First World War. This helmet, a near copy of the British Brodie helmet, was nicknamed the Doughboy helmet, and it was dangerously obsolete for the war that was coming. The M1917 was essentially a shallow steel bowl with a wide brim. It was designed for the specific conditions of trench warfare, to protect a soldier from shrapnel and debris raining down from above. For that one specific job, it was adequate. But the lessons of the Blitzkrieg in Poland and France were clear. The modern battlefield was a 360-degree environment. Soldiers were now fighting on the move, jumping from trucks and taking cover in shell craters. Threats came from all angles. The M1917, which offered almost no protection to the sides, back, or lower part of the head, was a fatal liability. It was also notoriously uncomfortable and unstable, with a simple liner that did little to cushion blows. A new helmet was a matter of life and death. The task of designing a new helmet fell to the U.S. Army's Infantry Board, beginning their research as early as 1941. Under the direction of Major Harold G. Sydenham, the team conducted a deep scientific study of the modern battlefield. They analyzed casualty statistics and the physics of ballistics. Their conclusion was revolutionary for the time. They would not design a single helmet. They would design a two-part system. The shell. The outer shell was a single, deep-drawn piece of Hadfield manganese steel, a non-magnetic alloy renowned for its incredible toughness and ballistic resistance. Its simple, deep bowl shape was not designed for aesthetics. It was pure physics. It was engineered to present a continuously curving surface to incoming projectiles from almost any angle, maximizing the chance of a ricochet. It extended low on the sides and back, protecting the areas the old Doughboy helmet left exposed. The liner, inside the shell sat a separate liner. This was the true innovation. Initially made of compressed paper fibers bonded with resin, and later a more durable plastic called micarta. This liner contained the adjustable suspension system that actually cradled the soldier's head. This two-part system created a crucial air gap between the steel shell and the liner. This gap did two things. It provided insulation from heat and cold, and more importantly, it helped to absorb and dissipate the kinetic energy from an impact. A soldier might be knocked unconscious by a severe blow that dented the steel pot, but the helmet had done its job, preventing the skull fracture that would have killed him. But the genius of the two-part system went far beyond protection. By separating the liner from the shell, the M1 became more than just a helmet. The steel shell, when removed, became the G.I.'s indispensable multi-tool. The G.I. used his steel pot for everything. It was his shovel, his hammer, his wash basin, his bucket, his seat, and, sometimes, his pillow. In a pinch, it was even his cooking pot. The liner, which was much lighter, could be worn by itself as a utility helmet in rear areas and was often worn by military police, vehicle crews, or officers who wanted some protection without the full weight of the steel shell. This incredible utility made the M1 not just a piece of life-saving equipment, but a beloved and essential part of the soldier's daily existence. A brilliant design is useless if you can't produce it in the millions. And this is where the M1 helmet's story becomes the story of the arsenal of democracy. The helmet's simple, single-piece stamped shell was designed for one thing: mass production. The primary contractor for the steel shell was the McCord Radiator and Manufacturing Company in Detroit, a company that normally made car radiators. They applied their deep knowledge of automotive deep drawing and stamping techniques to the problem. The liners were produced by a variety of companies, including the Hawley Products Company and, famously, the Westinghouse Electric Company. By the end of the war, American industry had produced over 22 million M1 helmets. 22 million. That is more than 3 times the total number of all models of the German Stahlhelm produced during the same period. America didn't just equip its own 16 million-man army. It produced enough helmets to equip them all, and then equip an entirely new army of 6 million more. It was an industrial tsunami that the Axis could not hope to match. So, with 22 million helmets in the field, did the design actually work? The anecdotal evidence is overwhelming. Every veteran's memoir is filled with stories of the life-saving clang of a bullet or piece of shrapnel ricocheting off their steel pot. But the statistical evidence is even more powerful. It is crucial to be clear: the M1 helmet was not bulletproof. A direct 90-degree hit from a rifle round, like the German 7.92mm Mauser, would penetrate it. But that was never its primary job. Its job was to protect against the #1 killer on the battlefield: randomly flying shrapnel. And at that, it excelled. Now, what about the famous German Stahlhelm? There is no doubt it was a good helmet, an evolution of a proven World War I design. Its distinctive flares offered superior protection to the neck and ears. However, its complex shape required more manufacturing steps, and some modern ballistic studies suggest its flatter surfaces were actually more likely to be penetrated by a direct hit than the M1's constantly curving bowl. The M1's shape provided statistically better protection from threats coming from above, the very artillery airbursts that were the main killer. The M1 helmet's service did not end in 1945. It would go on to protect American soldiers for another 40 years, through the brutal winters of Korea and the sweltering jungles of Vietnam. It became a global standard, with dozens of countries around the world, from Canada to Norway to Taiwan, adopting the M1 or a direct copy for their own armies well into the Cold War. Its revolutionary 2-part design philosophy directly influenced the next generation of American head protection. The PASGT, or K-pot helmet, of the 1980s, whose shape is a clear and direct evolution of the M1's proven design. More than any other single piece of equipment, the M1 helmet became the defining symbol of the American G.I. Its simple, universal shape is instantly recognizable, an icon of a generation that fought and won a global war. The M1 helmet was a masterpiece of American pragmatism. It was not born from a desire to create an intimidating symbol, but from a cold, scientific analysis of the modern battlefield. It was a superior system that provided better protection against the most common threats, while also serving as an invaluable tool for the soldier's daily life. But its greatest legacy was its sheer, overwhelming numbers. The fact that America could design, perfect, and then produce 22 million of these advanced helmets is the ultimate story of how the war was won. It proved that the arsenal of democracy could not just arm its soldiers, but could protect them better than any other army in the world. The Stahlhelm was the helmet of a fearsome army. The M1 was the helmet of a war-winning one. What do you think is the single most iconic piece of equipment of the American G.I.? Let us know in the comments below. And for more deep dives into the tools that changed history, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.